Welcome everybody to Daily Census Explained, where we explain the story in more detail, but in a fun way, so you can know the backstory and how the inspiration came for each episode and each chapter. Thank you guys for listening.
Welcome back to Chapter 8 of Daily Census Explained. We Need Staffing. Now, the title is slightly misleading because it sounds very like a continuation of the last conversation, and though that does play in, there's a lot more happening in this chapter than just staffing issues, although it does lead to what happens. So this is a big one in here. I have to mention first, though, that I really like a description at the beginning of this chapter as hospitals as smelling clean and dirty at the same time. And that is absolutely true. It captures exactly how I feel when I'm in a hospital, is that unless they're maybe very, very new and still smell like, fresh paint and new linoleum or something, they do smell clean and dirty simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Sometimes very intensely so, of bleach and urine or something. It might be two things.
Especially at nursing homes. You're like,
well, yes.
Bleach and piss at the same time.
Yeah, that's kind of what leads to that depressing atmosphere of many of those types of places.
Yeah, especially if they're older. But yeah, with this one, I mean, like I said, I worked in hospitals for years, my wife too. So yeah, it's that certain smell on certain units that you just, you know what it was. So I just wanted to make sure that the readers could understand it and see it in their head as well, and it actually sense it and smell it. Like, I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I visit someone in the hospital. I knew that smell.
Mm-hmm. And especially in an older building, those smells like they get into the floor.
And that's exactly what is in the floor.
Yeah,
that's why I took all of it out and put the wood vinyl flooring in.
Yeah,
so it don't absorb that.
Yeah, because it's
all the old carpets. Because they don't shampoo them.
Oh, right. So, yeah, just all that stuff just stays in that
that's
that
why I took them all out.
Yeah. It's good because, again, I think really the atmosphere in a building really can help whether someone descends further or gets healthier.
Yeah, I really think that's part of it. That's part of the healing process.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of those older hospitals, they may have windows, but they're not as big and bright as some of the newer ones. And there was a different mentality about a hospital and how
they're trying to get more rooms.
Right.
Not like the one I worked in San Antonio was like, we call it a boutique hospital.
Yeah.
Because it was almost like a hotel. The rooms were so beautiful.
Yeah.
But you paid a lot more, but it had everything in it.
Right. And that can really make a huge difference in how you feel. It's not like some of the, what's that? Oh, gosh, I forget the name of it. Downtown Atlanta has a big old hospital that they've improved in recent years. They put some really nice new wings on it, but it used to be the place that you didn't know that a lot of people didn't come out of when they went in because it was downtown. It was
everybody had a nickname for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so so that's not that I'm saying St. Mark's is that, but still there's that feeling about hospitals as we've talked about. So reestablishing sort of that atmosphere it was a perfect place to do it. Because then we go into how understaffed they are, how the state that Nurse Davis is in at this point is, she's overworked, she's exhausted, she's, so many more people have quit from the increased workload. She's just coming apart at this point. Mm-hmm. And, we all know that feeling of having been up too many hours, worked too much during the week. We can't.
She worked like for over 14 days straight, so she was exhausted.
We can't get our head straight at that point.
Delirious. She's just working on autopilot.
Yeah, which, as we're going to see, we're going to have another incident here. And whether or not, I don't know, it's not really discussed if the killer knows this, but certainly it, again, works to their advantage. So it seems intentional that they waited for the right moment and, hey, they're understaffed. The staff that's there is exhausted. Maybe what I'm doing could be blamed on a mistake because of this exhaustion. And so it seems like a really perfect moment to do what they do.
Yeah, I wanted to show that the serial killer was definitely experienced.
Yeah.
Definitely experienced and knew when and where.
Yes.
It wasn't like just random killings. This was planned out, plotted.
Yeah.
This is somebody who knew exactly what they're doing. So I wanted to show that in the book. So it wasn't just a random person.
and someone with a lot of patience, because it's been a little while. I mean, the other one was New Year's, so it's like 6 months since the last incident. So a time for people to kind of get lulled a little bit back into...
Everybody going back, like this is our first really big vacation since the kids died, so everybody just want to get out of there. Okay, and then with all the changes, of course, they left a vacuum. Vacuum of employees that they need to hire, but you can't just hire anybody. They got to have the right experience. And that's what CNO was trying to tell her. Ruben was trying to tell Nicole before. If I get rid of these nurses, it's going to be hard to replace them and train them again. Train new nurses. Just hiring them as anything. You still got to train them.
For that particular unit,
It takes a while, at least a year.
And the executives think that their new policies have worked at this point, and so they've kind of, not that they backed off, but they're not really looking under the microscope as much as they were.
6 months, no problem. So they're thinking, okay, everything is good, our policy works, I can go back to the board. See, no problems. It was a one-off.
It's died down a little bit.
It was a one-off. That's what she's trying to prove.
Yeah, no one's really paying attention.
And then this is on the 4th of July, so you've got a number of people who are, and if I remember, this is an
SICU.
And we have a lot of people who, if I remember correctly, are like victims of drunk driving. And
these was kids, teenagers. These were teenagers at this point. So, because it's different ones. You got some for pediatric. You got one for newborns. You got the regular ICU for adults. Then you got some for just teenagers. Then you got some for the burn unit. So it's different ones. You got PICU, burn scene. It's all different ones. So you're going to experience all of them.
Okay. And you always hear stories at least about, 4th of July, people blowing their hand off with a firecracker and, drinking too much and getting pulled out in a rip current. So there's all kinds of medical, issues that happen, emergencies, exactly, that happen at any holiday. But 4th of July involves explosives and a lot of alcohol-fueled celebration, which is any holiday, but 4th of July seems to be one where people take license to go to excessive levels.
Exactly.
So it almost seems to be part of the tradition at this point. So
bound to happen.
Yeah. So some of these accidents are definitely bound to happen. And I think you said it was all teenagers. I think the oldest one was 15 that is in here at this point. So, we've got Nurse Davis. She's exhausted. She's trying to keep up with all this. And she goes to sit down and just to rest for a minute, and before that she checks everyone, makes sure everyone's doing okay, and
falls asleep.
Yeah, she did all her rounds, but she's exhausted. And sometimes I've done that. You can do that while you're driving. Just 1 minute, just close. The next thing you know, you off the road. So I've done it at work. Just let me just close my eyes for a second. I'm going to get up, and next thing you know, it's 15 minutes.
Right.
And with her job, 15, 20 minutes all it takes.
And I realized I moved that up in the order here a little bit. Our shadowy figure actually comes in before she falls asleep. And because they're understaffed, she's out of the room for a few minutes, and whoever our killer is comes in and cranks all the machines up so that it's given the maximum amount of medications to all of our
So basically what it was, after she did her rounds, she went back to her room to chart everything.
Yes.
While she was charting.
That's where she was,
the lady goes in and turns everything up. Then when she went in to take a little nap, close her eyes for a second, when she wakes up because the other nurse comes in there yelling at her like, hey, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah, that figure.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing in there that it told us who Nurse Davis is and her compassion. Because you really set up that she really is a good person.
Yeah, she really cares. She's just overworked.
Yeah. She's not only good at her job, but she is a good person who has worked very hard to get here. And
which a lot of nurses don't have.
Right. And a lot of people in the profession are unfortunately often accused of not having a bedside manner.
It's just that a lot of, especially with my experience, a lot of ladies who became nurses because their parents wanted them to be nurses.
Right.
She didn't want to do that, but a mother or father said, that's a good job, something you fall back on. You can do the others in the level. At least keep your nurse money. You make good money.
Yeah.
And they did it, but they didn't want to do it. And you can tell when how they care for people.
Yeah.
You know, they just rude or don't care or on their phone. I've seen that. I dealt with that myself.
Well, on the other hand, you do have nurses that do have compassion, but after a while they become calloused.
Yeah.
Because it's routine.
Yeah.
It's the same complaints. And then you still get pressure from above to make you do more. So that's where the lack of compassion comes from at times as well. They do love what they do. They do love the patients and the people, but it's just overwhelming at times. And again,
and honestly,
that turtle skin. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine, too, like many professions where you see a lot of people in distress, hurt, dying, you have to see their families suffering and grieving, that sometimes...
Get immune to it.
And as a self-protection, you know, so that you yourself aren't mentally breaking down because you're seeing it, you start to put up this block between just seeing it as routine and not allowing yourself to be as deeply affected.
I'll give you a perfect example. I ran hospitals for a long time, right? So
yeah.
Always walked through a stroke unit. Never paid attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, to make sure they was good and go. As soon as my mother had a stroke,
right,
I pay attention to the stroke unit. I go up there and I talk to those people. I knew what the symptoms to look for in a stroke. Their face droop and all that. Never cared before it's physically something had to affect me.
Right.
And that's happened because after a while you get immune to it. You see it. You just don't even pay attention to it. Just a unit you walk through.
Yeah.
Until something like that happened to a family member to me, now I care more about it.
Yes.
So sometimes that's what happens. I mean, it's just human nature.
Yeah. Well, and what she notices is that because this killer has turned up all the medications, all the kids in the ward here are kind of writhing in their beds a bit, and they look uncomfortable. And so she's exhausted. She checks their charts and checks what she can give them. So she does this right. She doesn't notice that the machines have all been turned up, again, probably because she is just deliriously tired. But she gives them all sedatives to some degree to help them relax because she thinks they're just in pain. They are, but she doesn't realize it's because...
She just killed them. Yeah.
And then so she is the one who, though they would have died from the overdose of their medication, she actually hastens the process by doing what she does, and then she goes to take her nap. Or, close her eyes for a couple minutes. So when... by the time
a co-worker coming in.
Yeah, one push of a button.
Yep. And that is the scary thing is, again, someone with a knowledge of that could set those machines to do from a life-saving machine to a death machine.
Exactly. Just by turning up the doses.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very, careful balance of that medications are. And you just
but then
get it
you
a
see the
little bit
relatability that it can happen to anybody. She's a great nurse.
Yeah.
She really cares. She was just overworked.
Yeah.
Because of all the policies and everything. See how it all ties in together?
Mm-hmm. And once again, the killer took advantage of this and, basically sets her up. Yes. And so, because she's definitely going to get the blame for all of this when all of these kids are dead.
Somebody got to get the blame.
Yep. And she's going to be the one. And again, as we were talking about before, the hospital has a process. And there's a bureaucratic process to how they deal with an event like this. And the actions of the serial killer are getting lost in the bureaucratic response to these situations.
There's always little loopholes.
Yep. And I want to mention finally one thing here that I really like how in the visual slides for the book here, as we go through the chapters, even though the shadowy figure isn't in a lot of these chapters, we keep seeing slides of them to remind us they're there. And it's a creepy image of someone, with their head covered and with his face covering. And so we keep getting reminded that they're lurking somewhere here. And then, of course, they reappear and do something like this. But we've never forgotten about them because even though we're talking about other subjects, there's always a slide or two of them in there. So I think it's a good reminder for people that there is this lurking presence.
I love it that the reader knows what's going on, but the characters in the book has no idea that there's someone else doing this stuff.
It's what makes for a good horror and thriller is that when the audience is screaming, no, it's not that person. It's that
person. Try to break the fourth wall, you know?
Exactly. No, just pay attention, So... yeah, it's effective in that manner.
That's exactly what I was going for. When somebody watched it, like, come on, they're right there.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't India. She didn't do it.
Don't blame her.
Right, she's innocent. All right. Well, hey, That's a great chapter, and we've got more coming. So we'll see you all next time.
So if you could just please assist us by hitting the like, subscribe, and notification buttons. You can also comment and share our content. These small things really help our channel, and it means a lot to us.